marriage, now what? So last week we talked about vision, and we talked about, getting together and writing it down and conversating about that vision together and what it would look like, with the ability to be able to say no, but then also how can I have to do to be able to say yes? What results would I need in place to be able to say yes, that we'd be able to do both visions 100% completely, where both people feel connected. It's not a vision of you. It's not a vision of me. It's a vision of us together. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be on our mind is, what do we want to accomplish together? I go out and I make money, but I do it for the good of the family together, so that my wife can do what she wants to do. And one of the things that she wants to do is be a stay-at-home mom, And so my part is outside, but I don't ask her for the vision of, how do I run my business, or, things like that. Because her vision is you work with your team on the vision that you want to run your business and what that works out. And then I come home and I have the profits and I have the money and I have focus on our household, our marriage vision. And so there is a little bit of separation in that. You go to work and, you can't say to your boss, well, my wife's vision for me at work is, because basically your boss has a different vision for you. But it's primarily to think how important it is that your boss has a vision for you. You have a vision basically almost every other place of your life. Isn't it important to have a vision at home? And so today we want to kind of talk about the application of, after you have that conversation, applying that to your life now. You go to work and your boss says, hey, do X, Y, Z, and you do X, Y, Z, and then maybe you come a little short and you only get X and Y done. And he says, hey, what about Z? And I think that's kind of the thing is you don't only have to make the plan of what the vision is. Now you have to make the plan of how to accomplish it. What are you going to implement? What are going to be kind of the guidelines or rules or hopes? Are you going to do a monthly, timeline? Are you talking about a year timeline? Are you talking about, do you need to go study something? If you're going to be talking to your kids about, the next steps in their life, is there something that you need to do so that you can implement that vision that you guys decided on?
So the timing aspect, it's big, it's huge, and it's different for everybody. There's some of the applications that on the mission vision may be a very specific targeted. We're going to do date night Friday night, every Friday night, or we're going to do family night every Thursday night, or we're going to do supper with your parents every Sunday, whatever the case may be. That's a specific chronological target. There's two time systems that is going on in and around us all the time. One being chronological, it's somewhere after noon right now, 12:35, and the other is Kairos timing. Two big differences. Kairos deals not only with chronological time, but with a season of time. And so it could be, like you say, a season we're coming into. We talked a good bit on last session about basketball season. That's a Kairos kind of thing. When season kind of starts and when it kind of ends. Your life's going to be very hectic for those 3 or 4 months, and especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 5 to 8 or whatever the chronological time is. In Kairos prison training ministry, they use illustration that the husband and wife come home from their doctor's appointment with the first child being the expectancy of the first child. And the doctor says, babies can be born on July the 7th. And so they go home and put July 7th on the calendar, on the refrigerator, so everybody can see it. Write the vision, make it plain. And everybody sees July 7th. Junior's going to be here. And then the dad goes ahead and takes off the 8th, 9th, and 10th. The whole first week, he's off work and he's planning out meals, and mom's cooking the meals and freezing them and putting them in the fridge, all this stuff. Because July 7th is the target. And then July 7th comes, and what happens? Nothing. There's no water break. There's no baby. And so the chronological estimated time was based off a calendar, off of all these cycles and women's studies and all this stuff. But that wasn't God's timing. God's timing might have been the 8th or the 9th or the 10th or who knows. But that's God's special appointed time. And so these two timelines do run parallel throughout eternity, and from time to time they intersect and interweave but it's God's timing, both of them, chronos, chronological time, and kairos. It's all his timing. He says, I'm the beginning and the end, so he's both systems of time. And too many times when we're making plans, we plan only for the chronological time. I'm going to take you out Friday night, honey, and we're going to go to the Waffle House and the Walmart, and it's going to be a great time. And that's it. And then by Sunday, she's like, well, what about now? What about... And you've made this statement before, a lot of times folks get married. That was a chronological event. And then what happens? The planning stops, the courting stops, the dating stops, the wooing stops, everything slows down or stops. And then how did we get in this position? And so kairos and chronos timing is both important aspects.
Well, and I think about some of the times in my life where I felt like a failure, even though I tried really hard. And it comes up to...
You tried really hard to feel like a failure?
No, I really tried hard to be a failure.
Okay, I just want to clarify that before you...
So what happened is like I would write down the vision, right? And so the vision's written down, and I'm going for the vision, and I put a time on it of, I'm going to accomplish this in 1 month. I'm going to accomplish that here. I'm going to accomplish that within this year. Date night. Going down to, the Waffle House, and you're going to order something for your wife.
The Grand Slam.
Right, the Grand Slam. And so here you are. You did it last week, and then you did it the week after that, and then you did it the week after that, and then, boom, something happens. You can't go on date night anymore on Friday night because either you got a different shift, or your car broke down. And so then you didn't have the money that week to do it. And then you realize you didn't have the money the next week to do it. So now you're 2 weeks down. And you almost form habits around the do's and the don'ts in your vision. And so then what do you do if it goes a month, it goes 2 months? Are you afraid to bring it back up to the person and say, hey, what about our date night? Or are you willing to analyze that? And so that's what I'm saying about time is sometimes time sets you up as a failure. If you say every Friday night and then you miss that Friday night, high school football comes around and it's on Friday night, and you didn't anticipate that in your plan, now what? And those are the little foxes that steal, break the vine, you almost set yourself up for failure when it's a time piece, and then you even feel like a failure, oh man, I didn't take my wife out again on Friday night. And now I feel like a failure. And now I don't feel like our vision is connected, and I'm failing at the vision. And, I want to be a good husband. I couldn't control the car breaking down or stuff like that. Kind of talk about that, how to mend that back together in the relationship of the vision of what they're applying. Well,
I like the way Stacy addresses it. When I mess some things up like that, schedules, or I can mess some things up. We can just leave it at that, right? Because it's like, that's a whole nother, anyways. And I'll say, ultimately, the Kairos time is, we're out of step, we're out of sync, things are going crazy, or we believe they are. And the chronological time, it's been all day, we hadn't sat down and figured this out, or, we need to get this figured out. We don't want to go to bed tonight like this. So the chronological time and the Kairos time now are going to intersect for a few minutes. And inevitably, and now we've had this conversation so many times over, it's kind of a joke with our marriage now, but I'll say, I'm going to try to do, and Stacy will cut me off and just say, I don't need you to try. I just need you to do it. And so, but I still throw that in there just kind of like a comic relief now, because when we're in those serious arguments, or not, arguments, discussions / arguments, or arguments / discussions, or Chris screwed up, and then I'll throw that in there. I'm going to try to do better, or I'm going to try. She's like, I don't want to hear that. I just want to hear, I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to. And so
back to the vision.
Where did we miss it? Let's get back on track.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I think like in business sometimes, or in everything, there's a learning curve. So even when you write down the vision and you think it's the best vision, and that's what I loved about where you were talking about, write it in pencil. there's going to be a learning curve in that vision. Does this work? Does it not work? You know, I know with me and my wife, we've talked about, we get a great cookbook and we're like, ooh, every Sunday we're going to make this. And then, you know, we get home from eating out, you know, and then we realize we don't have the ingredients. And then we realize we're going to take a 2-hour nap. And then we realize, you know, and one of the kids is gone or something. And so then we're sitting there and we're like, oh, we didn't do it. And then it gets to about, 8 o'clock at night and the kids are like, well, what about, weren't we going to make a dessert today? Oh, the vision.
That was next week.
Right.
Y'all were mixed up.
Every week we met every other monthish.
First Monday.
Right. So how often do we get off the vision? So I think, sometimes people they don't even be willing to start the process because they basically know, man, I've done that before and I failed. I can tell you another time with my kids. I wanted to spend more time with my kids. And so I told them, hey, listen, I'm going to give you $20 a week. And if I spend time with you, we're going to spend that money getting ice cream or whatever. And if I don't spend that time with you, you get that $20. Well, then my kids, I thought it was a great
Everybody
plan.
stopped eating ice cream.
Right. Everybody's like, oh, Dad, don't worry about it. Just give me the $20. And I'm like, that's not the purpose. Like, I had to tweak that system. I was like, this is not work. Man, they are some money hungry. So, the intention of the vision was great. The process and application of it was drastically wrong.
The follow through.
Right. So we ended up, then I tried to tweak that vision and the follow through fell apart and everything. Because then once I took the money out, the kids were like, And so how many times have we done that with our marriage? We're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to connect with my wife. Well, yeah, we got this vision. Then it's,
Yeah, so here's the fun part, ladies. Are y'all ready? Everybody listening, all the ladies in Never Land or wherever, whoever's listening. So it's ultimately the man's job, I believe, to get this on paper. The mission and vision. And the reason I believe that
Cut. We got to change this podcast. I'm kidding, Ricky.
It's way back.
He's putting way too much pressure on me now.
In Genesis, in the very beginning, in the garden, it says the Lord took the man into the garden to work and keep it. Some translations say to tend it. But it was later on where he says, I'm going to make a helpmate fit for you. But he had already gave him the instructions to work and keep. And then you now have a co-laborer to work and keep. Now, this don't mean the man goes out there and writes the plan and say, this is what we're going to do, woman, you're going to stick to it. And if you don't stick to it, things are going to be bad. It's not about that. It's about everything you've said. It's coming to agreement with one another, getting a plan that works for the family, but it involves implementation and follow-up. And so when things go screwy at our house, it's usually because I took the Sunday afternoon nap and didn't cook the dessert or go get the whatever I was supposed to get or whatever. And sometimes Stacy forgets, and she takes credit for it when she does, because she knows that when we get to that time for that intersection, for that conversation, she don't like me to say I'm going to try to do better, so she automatically don't do it. She don't even like to have fun with it. She just says, I'm not going to do this anymore, or I'm going to do this from now on. She takes the try completely out of it. That's her formula for success. And so,
well, what I notice is when we talked is the woman writes her vision, the man writes his vision. You did not say the man bring the vision and tell the woman what she needs to do. And even in the whole effect of the helpmeet, for me, the number one scripture for marriage is to become one. That unity. So her vision, my vision becomes one vision. We do it together. And again, if the Lord would call a woman a helpmeet, then obviously she's got something to help.
Right.
She's got some information. She knows something. She's valuable and important. And the help should be me understanding I don't understand it all, and she's the help of my understanding.
The quicker we come to realize that, the better off we are.
And that's the value portion of this. It's not her to take my vision and apply it to what she needs to do to make me happier. When I get home at 5 o'clock, my vision is that you have the meal on the table. what my vision is how can we both create that meal being on the table? How can we both create raising these kids? How can we both create the maintenance of this house? You know, whether it be laundry or dishes or cleaning or mowing the yard, whatever it looks like, you know, how can we both have the vision for all parts? And that's, you know, it's not just one part, it's everything together. I think we need to analyze every ecosystem, I like to say, in the household: the interior, the exterior, the future, the finances, you know, and apply all of those things. That might be a lot to swallow right now, especially if your marriage is on troubled times, but that's the goal. You know, start first with our relationship. What's the vision for communication? That we completely understand each other. What's the vision for our kids? You know, what's the vision? And just kind of go down the line. Like, this is not a one-time exercise, and it's not a one-subject exercise. We should be applying all these different parts. And once we realize that, once we get down to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, you know, thing, we're going to see instantaneous unity happen in stuff, because basically we've already connected on so many different other places. And I think that's the most important part, is connecting, right? So we connect with God, right? We want to make a relationship. We connect with our kids. We connect with people at work. The importance of this vision is connecting. That's the root behind all of it, is connecting and staying and maintaining that connection.
And that's good. And it looks different for all of us. I mean, what works for the James household may not work for our household.
100%.
And that's okay. I like Pastor Jimmy a whole bunch. Jimmy Smith, he's a great guy. Many of y'all probably know him, but he'll always, during conversation, say, "What do you have figured out?" And my answer is always the same: I figured out that I don't have it figured out. And he'll chuckle and we'll move on. But one little thing that we've learned over time is, and again, this may work for y'all, whatever, may not work for us, but pillow talk time. Once you're in the bed and the airplane's on, you know, landing gear's out, lights are on, it's bedtime, time to go to sleep. Shut the brain off. And we don't talk about finances. I mean, we could have like 7 cents left to our name, and Stacy will not bring it up. And if I even ask, she's like, "We'll talk about it in the morning." And I'm like sitting up, "What do you mean we'll talk about it in the morning? How bad is it?" And she's like, "It's not bad, but we'll talk about it in the morning." Because once we begin that conversation on finance at bedtime, at time to go to bed, time to go to sleep, time to shut everything down, my mind is like energy drink central then. I'm wide awake. I cannot sleep. I toss and turn. I get up and walk, whatever, and I keep her up. And then morning time comes, I'm like, "Okay, give it to me." And then she's like, "I'm exhausted. We stayed up half the night with you." But we've learned. And that may sound silly to you and to whoever, but we've got a lot of those little internal mechanisms that's just been built in over 20 plus years. That one big one is we never talk about finance anymore. Even an hour or so before bed, we just don't bring it up, because we'll both start, and primarily me will be like, "Well, we could do this and pay this, or do this and pay that, or we should pay this down first," and it just don't work, because my brain will not shut off. And then Stacy will throw that out. "Well, you know what the Bible says about fear and worry," and I'm like, "Go to sleep." And then here we go.
And you're going different ways. With different visions,
ways.
Right.
But you know, we broke one of the visions. One of the plans is we don't talk about it. You know, really after dinner, if we can't get it resolved up to dinner or shortly thereafter, we just quit. Both of us. We don't have to say we're stopped talking about it. We just don't talk about it.
And this is the application that I'm talking about for you.
Yeah.
It's even a timing thing, you know, so even for you to talk about the vision, it's a timing thing, you know, and that's so important, because we want both sides to be at peace. Both sides to be ready, both sides to feel comfortable, both sides to feel like, yes, this is good for me. And so I know for me, I tell Liz, I says, you know, listen, if I'm getting in the bed, it's because I'm going to sleep. You know, like it is not pillow talk time.
I'm not trying to go to sleep. I'm going to sleep.
Right. I mean, I'm not just hanging out as some activity to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed, you know, and so. That is a great point. You know, there's seasons that we're going to be able to think about in the future to see, what's coming up in the future. But then also, how do we process information on a day-to-day, on a minute-by-minute? How many things can I take on? When I get home at 5 o'clock, is it the time to start talking to me about information? Doing the podcast, sometimes I get work stuff right before the podcast, and I'm like, hold on. Give me an hour. Let me do this podcast. I'll give you my full focus. And so, there's that management stuff, because I don't want to come into the podcast with a bunch of stuff on my mind about work and not be able to give the best content out there. And it's not that I'm, like you said before, basically neglect, what can I leave today? What can I procrastinate a little bit on so that I can maintain the sanity of my life and marriage? Plan neglect. That's a good one. So, application of applicating. What is the challenge for applying this to your life?
I think it's clear and effective communication on timing, both chronologically, how it looks on the calendar, and also, is it God's timing? Is it the season for it? Ecclesiastes speaks of times and seasons, and specifically in seasons, not so much of 4 o'clock, December 23rd, but, seasons and specific times are both important for us as living in the culture we live in, fast-paced society. Everybody's got kids and schedules and basketball and archery and 4-H and all this, none of which any of us want to neglect as a parent. So the timing is important for us as parents and us as couples, but clear communication on who's going to do what and when to get all of the needs of the house met.